Mr. Stuart, you have a new book on the bicentennial.
Yes, I have a small book coming out it's about land, incidentally. It's coming out with Kentucky University Press. This is not my big house, my big publishing house. I have one coming there in October, and it's beyond the state of Kentucky. It is land. It mostly is land. The title of it is My Land, and I had to write it within limitations. There's a series of books published there, and mine couldn't be over 120 typewritten pages. So I have a chapter in that book on the United States, places I'd like to live if I was in the state, and I have a place, the world, a chapter on the world where I'd like to live.
Where in the United States, other than W. Holly, Kentucky, would you like to live?
Oh, I mentioned the place. I went to every state. I've traveled in all the states in the United States but Alaska. And I've spoken in 45 of the 50. And so I found places in nearly all of them. For instance, here's one where I didn't speak, was Idaho, but I'd like to live in, if I lived in Idaho, I'd like to live in the foothills of the Bitterroot Mountains. It's a beautiful country through there. I liked it going through. And for instance, in New England, I mentioned there, that's a good, favorable place, all the states of New England, especially if you could see the Atlantic, and then up where you can't see it. I like the northern parts of Vermont and New Hampshire, where the barns are tied to the houses and where they have their wood piles out. I love that. I was used to that in my youth. We used to burn wood.
You've drawn a great deal of your strength and inspiration from land and family. And you mentioned New England, and you're always very outspoken on social and political problems.
Yeah.
I wonder if you would comment politically. One time, about 3 or 4 years ago, you made the comment that youth is frittering away the future. And also you've made some incisive comments about patriotism. Have your views changed on these?
No, they haven't. My views haven't changed. I think we have here, of all the countries that I have been in the world, and I've been in 90 countries, I count them one day, and I don't know of a greater country than the United States right this minute, where even though a lot of people are out of work, where a man still can make a living, where he's still got space, where he still can eat, and where he's still got opportunities to go in school and improving himself, man and woman. There's schools everywhere for somebody to improve themselves. Well, in so many of these countries I have traveled in, they haven't got anything like that.
Well, you know, just the other day we heard a comment by an educated woman that patriotism is dead.
Well, she ought to have her head examined. It is not dead. It's not dead down my way, and it's not dead in Kentucky, and it's not dead where I've traveled. I haven't been any place, and I don't think it's dead in New England. You let somebody start coming over the border and invading a New England state, or coming over the border and invading California, you'd see some people rise up and pick up their guns. They'd all be out there, old and young.
You've had some interesting comments on integration, busing, and so forth, and they're having trouble in the East, in Boston. Would you care to comment on the current situation?
Well, I just read it in the paper this morning, and I don't think that the people should have gone down there, and I don't think they just asked for trouble when they went down, the group of blacks, and bothered the Irish. Why didn't they leave them alone? They had a spot on the beach, and they went down to test it, they said, and they got tested. Now, you know, what you want to do in integration, you don't do it that way. You do it with a smile, you do it through education, you do it through churches, and you don't just go testing and going in something like that. New England has had integration problems before. They've had the Polish, they've had the Puerto Rican, not Puerto Ricans, but they had the Portuguese there, they've had the Italians, they've had all kinds of groups, and now they all work together. You don't do those things like somebody is trying to push it and maybe make a headline in the paper. They got it, throwing bricks and rocks, and you know, I happen to know, I've traveled in Ireland too, and you know, you stir Irish up, you've got a hornet's nest.
Well, how about the youth frittering away the future comment you made several years ago? You'll be talking to Ball State graduating seniors this Friday. What
yes,
do you tell them?
I'm going to tell them about doing something, but the youth, a lot of our youth don't take advantage of the opportunities in front of them. Some of them, if only they could travel, if only they could see what the other countries have got, For instance, I talked just a minute ago to one of the people who have here, who is a Greek, of Greek descent, born in this country. His parents both in the old country, and he's on a program here. He was talking about the poverty of Greece. Now, Greece does have poverty. They have great minds. They're marvelous students. They're tremendous people. And he was talking about it. Now, you give the Greeks over there, I taught sea in Egypt, you give those youth that I had over there the opportunities the Americans have now. Oh, my. You give the Koreans the opportunities. You give the Taiwanese. You give the same. You give. I worked all over Taiwan. You give the Filipinos. Well, yeah, he might. He may not do as well as the Taiwanese. I don't know. But the Filipino, they're all going to school. They're all going to school who can go in the Philippines. And you take. I worked all over that country and I loved them. Then you go down into Iran. What if they had what if they had the opportunities we have here? I worked all over that country, Iran. I worked all over Greece. I spoke in English in Greece, all over that country, and they understood me.
As one of the great...
and Lebanon, and I spoke all over Egypt. When I tell them and talk about America, what they wanted. Let me just tell you some simple things they wanted to hear. You can't imagine this. What they wanted to hear me tell them about an American high school band, about an American high school football team, what we ate for breakfast, what we raised on our farms. That's the things that these people wanted to know, and I could talk to them all day. And some lectures in my class at American University in Cairo, my English class, was on autumn leaves, the red leaves, the yellow leaves, the kind of leaves we had, like it falls all over this country in autumn. They had never seen a red leaf in that tropical country that hadn't been out of there. See, we've got it. We've got everything. Oh, I mean.
Mr. Stuart, in researching you, I've found that almost as much has been written about you as you have written, and I think that's some 45 books and hundreds of articles. Is there any point in your career where you have felt like a literary giant and bigger than life?
No, I have never felt larger than life, and I don't know that I'm a literary giant. I don't want to think in those terms, but you were talking about so many books, about books written about me. There have been 8. There's 2 more to come. There's 3 more to come, and there will be, I think, even beyond that. And so I wonder what each book will say that it's written about me. Some of them will not always be, parts of them at least, will not be too kind, and that's all right. I've had kind things said. They balance, and it surprises me. I'm glad to live to see it. I never dreamed it would happen to me, because I've never been the front person in any school where I've been among the young. I was never the genius in the class. I was about 3rd or 4th back, or maybe a little farther back than that. Now, there's always been somebody ahead of me, and I have never dreamed that it would turn out like this. And I've thought all the time, this will be the last, it's going to end. It won't end. It keeps getting bigger. So I don't know. I get letters from all over the country now. I get so many I can't answer them. People come. I've got an unlisted number, but they get there anyhow, and the unlisted telephone number, they just come. And they're on my doorstep, and I invite them in, and we sign books. And I tried this summer teaching at Murray, and after each class, I signed no less than 10 books, the least. It's almost a book signing day when I teach a class anymore. And I sign papers, I sign the program papers wherever I am. I have a time. It's getting harder and harder. So it's, you asked me the question, you put that up big, and I don't know, but I did make the 44 novelists of America, the first 44 of the century, and there's an awful lot of novelists around the first half of the century.
This is an accomplishment, and one of your books was chosen as one of the 1,000 all-time best.
Yes, it has been. That's right, 1,000. And then I had, one was on 100 best in America. I don't know where it still holds or not. Thread That Runs So True was listed as 100 of the, on the 100 best books of America.
You have a quiet sense of accomplishment and pleasure in these.
Yes, I don't like to be over-publicized. I'd like to have something more than whatever publicity says I am. Is that all right?
That's fine.